Hello, Dr. Nocera. This is Sonia Laterio here, and this is my presentation on ethical dilemmas in the workplace. So, my description. You notice that your co-teacher is spending more time than usual on their work-assigned laptop computer. She is on the laptop mostly during break time, but occasionally during class time. One day you notice that she is online looking at her personal social media. The co-teacher notices that you see and explains that this is her way of keeping in touch with her family. What should you do? So I think that this could be a really cut and dry situation if the co-teacher is looking at their social media during instructional time on the work computer. That's definitely a no-no. But the fact that she mentions her family raises other questions. So it's an ethical dilemma because she's using the company technology for personal use. There's a potential for students and others to be exposed to inappropriate content. And I'm thinking of like if you're looking on your social media, there's always ads and posts that other people put up, and it could be incredibly inappropriate. It could be sexual content, obscene language, it could be violence. Um, those are all things that are inappropriate to be shown in the workplace. Um, but there's also the not wanting to interfere with others' personal lives, um, if there, especially if there's an emergency involved. So those are things that I would want to clear up with the teacher, but um, I feel like this is a situation when it is a dilemma because there, there's no right answer here. The teacher needs to be in communication with their family for some reason, but she also needs to not do that on company technology. So I would want to protect the integrity of the program while also showing support to my colleague. Solution one, do nothing. There's people out there that are non-confrontational and they will sit back and do nothing. But what happens is that opens the door for students to potentially view inappropriate content. Um, it allows the co-teacher to misuse instructional time, and once there's that misuse of instructional time, I think there's a potential for that to snowball into more and more time being misused. Um, it allows the co-teacher to possibly violate any agreements or contracts between the school district and teachers. And it puts others in a position of possible discipline if the behavior is not reported. Solution two is to speak directly with the co-teacher and ask her to use her personal cell phone or personal technology. Maybe she has a personal computer for personal communications. So I would want to approach this with the focus and concern of protecting my colleague. I would want to let her know that I'm bringing this up because I want to protect her because she could be violating the district technology contracts. She could be setting herself up for a situation where a student sees something inappropriate. So I would want to also offer flexibility for her to check in with her family. And I would want to show concern also to her because if there's something happening in her life, you want to show that support to your colleague that ties into building relationships. There are two quotes that I really like that really kind of address this. And one was, "We are responsible for limiting our arguments to principles and not personalities." And I think this is really important to remember um, in these types of situations to keep it to the facts, to keep it strictly to I'm trying to protect you as an employee and trying to protect the students as well, trying to prevent a situation from happening. And the other one talks about emotional intelligence and our ability to step into someone else's shoes. I think that in situations like this, they can become contentious because it could be really cut and dry. One person could say, "Hey, you're doing this. This is wrong. Don't do it again." And the other person's going through something heavy in their life. And so there's a misunderstanding there. And I think that can cause a rift in relationships. So I think it's really important to lead with just concern and that concern to protect employment and protect students. Protect students, most definitely. So legal ramifications. Um, there's something called the Children's Internet Protection Act, and so it requires schools to have safety protocols to benefit from a discounted internet rate. I work for a school district and I have no idea if they have this or not. And I'm thinking maybe schools have this and maybe schools don't. So what if your school doesn't have these safety protocols and their internet is just open? That allows so much potential for so many things to go wrong when you're surfing the web. The thing that I foresee with this is the teacher on their social media, then it's their turn to project their screen for the class. We do that so often. We do that every day. We project our screen so we could show them where to go, what to do, the Google Classroom, all that. So what if we forget to close the tab of our social media? And on our social media screen, there might be something really inappropriate. Now everyone sees it. Everyone. The students, whoever else is in the room, everyone sees it. And it could just be for a second or two, but it's up there. So um, definitely, if you don't know if your school has those safety protocols, just don't surf the web on their technology. There's also a very long process for the teacher dismissal in California. There's a long process for the due process, and I know that there's investigations that happen, and then there's appeals that can happen. Um, but I was looking up the two things that teachers can um, be dismissed for is non-compliance with school law and contracts and immoral conduct. And so I think that, say, there's sexual content, violent content, obscene language shown, I think that could fit under immoral conduct. Um, and so through the appeals process, I think the teacher would probably have to show that it was not intentional, um, but still the teacher would not be in compliance with technology contracts, if there are any technology contracts between students and teachers. And then there's a potential for action against a person who did not report viewing of inappropriate content. So we all take these sexual harassment courses at the school, and part of it is that responsibility. If you see something, you say something. Um, Not necessarily saying something to your employer, but definitely saying something to the person who is exhibiting whatever behavior or action. In this case, it would be the co-teacher. Um, it's my responsibility to say something to them first. They might not be aware of what they're doing, um, and so by saying something to them, that's the first step. So, what solution would I choose? I definitely would speak to the co-teacher. Um, in building relationships with my coworkers, with my colleagues, I'd want to offer solutions so that she can stay connected to her family that avoids any issues. So that could be, does she need more time to step outside? Does she need to take a longer break? Are there certain times she needs to take a break? Or does that just involve me being flexible? And if she needs to jump out of the class, then okay, that's what's happening that day. Offer empathy and concern, understanding, and express that the concern is for maintaining the program integrity, the safety of the students, and the protection of both of our employments. I think it's really important here to talk about leading with kindness. That is something that I read in our readings this week. And I think with that, if we don't, if we lead with assumptions, rather than lead with questions and kindness and understanding and empathy, that will completely make a rift in relationships. And that's something you want to avoid, because when there is that rift in relationships, animosity builds, resentment builds, and there's that definite threat of workplace violence. And so it's not worth it. It's not worth it to play hard and say this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, and to take that approach. It's not worth it. It's worth it more to be flexible and to adapt to situation that protects everybody. So justification, I use the NAEYC Code of Ethics to justify my decisions. So in protecting the coworker, um, Ideal 3A.1 talks about maintaining cooperative relationships. And so that's why you would talk directly to that person first. Talk to the person where the issue is first and see if you can resolve the issue. You resolve it confidentially, you resolve it respectfully, and you extend dignity to that person. In protecting students, Ideal 1.4 talks about students being vulnerable, and they really are vulnerable to us. We have to be very mindful of what we say, what we show, our actions, because they we're the leaders. We're the leaders in the classroom. So we need to lead by that example. And then principle 1.1, do no harm emotionally. Um, do not be disrespectful. And so what I see happening is if a student sees something, and say we're working with young students, if a young student sees something sexual or violent, or even obscene language, they're going to have questions. They can go home and ask their parents, or they might ask us, or they might ask another student, or they might just, they might talk about it. And so, what if they're not ready to have that conversation? What if they're really young kids and they see something and they're not ready for that conversation? That can be doing some emotional damage for them, being exposed to something they're not ready for too early. And then principle 1.11, it's our responsibility to protect children. And I think this situation comes under that, to protect children. So then also protect the integrity of the program. So we want to uphold the program, and we don't want to do anything that diminishes the program. We want to adhere to any laws and regulations that protect children, and also laws and regulations that we're responsible to. And then principle 3B.4 says that if there isn't any progress made after speaking to an employee or a coworker about an issue, then the next step would be to speak to an administrator. But hopefully, with offering your respect, offering grace to somebody who may be going through something, um, this type of situation can be squashed pretty quickly. Um, and that is my hope. And I hope I never to be in this type of situation. So, anyways, thank you for listening. Have a good weekend, and I will see you in Module 3. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Here's my reference page. Okay, thank you so much.